Hold up, guys. You've heard of crazy racing crashes before. High speeds, flying debris, cars flipping, fireballs, but this one? This was something else entirely. 40 years ago, the place? Indianapolis Motor Speedway, one of the most legendary, dangerous tracks on Earth. And behind the wheel that day was a skilled driver, but with a reputation for pushing things just a little too far. He had one goal: break 200 miles per hour in qualifying. Fans were hyped. Teams were tense. Some drivers were worried. They warned him, told him to dial it back. But our racer, he wasn't backing down. He wanted to make a statement, and what happened next? It wasn't just a crash. It was an explosion. A violent, fiery nightmare that literally tore the car and Gordon Smiley apart. Caught on camera, seen by millions, and remembered for decades as one of the most horrific moments in racing history. This isn't just a story about speed or danger. It's a story about ambition, warnings ignored, and a system that failed to protect its own. So if you think you know racing tragedies, buckle up, because this is the infamous crash of Gordon Smiley. You'll want to stick around till the end for this one. Let's get to know the man behind the helmet first. Gordon Smiley wasn't just some nobody on the track. Born in Omaha, Nebraska, in 1946, he was basically built for racing. His dad was into it. Gordon got hooked early. Like most racers, he started small, motorcycles, go-karts, but soon he was dominating all kinds of racing classes. By the time the 70s rolled around, Smiley had already made a name for himself. He raced in Formula Ford, Formula Atlantic, Formula 5000, all the cool kid series back then. The guy was talented, no doubt. He even scored a win at Silverstone in the British F1 series, a rare move for an American racer. Smiley had speed, skill, and guts. But guts alone don't always mix well with IndyCar, especially at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Fast forward to 1982, Smiley's back at the Brickyard. He'd already raced the Indy 500 twice before, once in 1980 and again in 1981. One race killed his turbo, the other ended with a crash. But in 1982, he was more determined than ever, and here's where things get intense. People around the paddock said Smiley had a goal: break 200 miles per hour. On paper, that sounds badass, but in reality, dangerous, especially for someone with a road racing background. Veterans warned him. Seriously, they told him flat out, "You're doing it wrong. This track isn't like road courses, you can't drive it the same way." But Smiley didn't listen. He was locked in, focused, maybe too focused. So here we are, May 15th, 1982, just a qualifying day, practice runs. Nothing too crazy, right? Wrong. Smiley heads out for his run. He's in the second warm-up lap, just building up speed. He's pushing hard, really hard. As he enters turn 3, something goes wrong. The rear end starts to slide, not unusual at these speeds. Drivers call it oversteer. You try to correct it, adjust the steering, and bring the car back. But what Smiley does is something you do on a road course. He jerks the wheel to counter-steer. The front tires snap back, suddenly grip again, and the car whips violently, straight into the wall, head-on. At nearly 200 miles per hour, the crash wasn't just a hit. It was a bomb going off. The force of the collision caused the car to instantly disintegrate. Pieces flew everywhere. Flames shot into the air. The fuel tank erupted, sending a fireball sky high. Smiley's car was torn to bits. And the most horrifying part? He was ejected from the wreckage. The car basically exploded on contact. Medical teams rushed in, but when they got to the scene, it was already clear. There was nothing they could do. Dr. Steve Olvey, one of the doctors at the track, later described what he saw, and it's straight out of a nightmare. He found Smiley's helmet completely off. Not just that, the top of his skull was gone. They followed a trail of gray matter on the asphalt. His brain had literally been ejected by the force of the crash. Massive trauma everywhere. It was the kind of crash people never forget. Now you'd think the race would stop for the day, right? 3 hours later, after crews scraped what was left of the car off the track and fixed the wall, qualifying resumed. Just like that. Like it never happened. At 12:48 p.m., a loudspeaker crackled on and said the words no one wanted to hear. "Ladies and gentlemen, It is with our deepest regrets that we announce the passing of Gordon Smiley, and that was it. No tribute, no pause, no silence, just another lap at Indy. Let's break it down why the crash happened. What actually caused the crash? It started with oversteer. The back wheels lost grip. That happens, but it's how Smiley responded that sealed his fate. He tried to fix it by countersteering like you'd do in road racing, but on an oval with that kind of speed and downforce, that just causes the front wheels to bite in too hard. It causes a snap and you're gone. The car turned into a missile. He hit it almost dead on, with no angle to absorb the impact. And because the safety features at the time weren't what they are now, no energy-absorbing barriers, limited cockpit protection, the car basically self-destructed on impact. Smiley's crash sent shockwaves through the racing world. Fans were horrified, the drivers were shaken, the media tore into the sport. Everyone was asking, why was he even allowed to attempt 200 miles per hour? Why weren't better safety measures in place? And why even did the race go on so quickly after such a horrific accident? But guess what? Nothing changed. Not in 1983, not in 1984. In fact, just months after Smiley's crash, another driver, Jim Hickman, died in a similar accident. It wasn't until 1999, after another fatal crash, that real reforms started rolling in. Car designs were changed, cockpits became safer, barriers were upgraded, speeds were better managed. It took almost 20 years for the racing world to learn the lesson from Gordon Smiley. Gordon Smiley's name isn't brought up much these days. He didn't win the Indy 500, but what happened to him, that crash, it's burned into the memory of every fan who's ever watched the video. In a sport where death is always a possibility, Gordon Smiley's crash became the ultimate "what went wrong" example. A warning, a moment that's still studied in racing safety circles. Today we have safer barriers, Hans devices, advanced helmets, all the things that might have saved him back then. But back in 1982, just a man, a fast car, and a track that didn't forgive mistakes. Let's call it what it really was, the most violent crash in Indy 500 history. Caught on camera, witnessed by thousands. Gordon Smiley wasn't reckless. He was passionate, determined, maybe a little too ambitious, but he loved the sport, and he died chasing speed, the very thing he lived for. His crash wasn't just a tragedy, it was a warning shot, a brutal real-life consequence of pushing the limits with outdated safety standards. It exposed everything wrong with the system back then, the culture, the pressure, the obsession with speed over safety. 3 hours later, racing resumed like nothing had happened. Think about that. A man's life ended in the most horrific way, and the engines roared back to life before the smoke had even cleared. That moment said a lot about the mindset of motorsports at the time. Gordon Smiley became more than just a driver. His crash became a turning point, even if the change came painfully late. His story still echoes through the paddocks and pit lanes today, reminding every young driver that the price of speed can be unforgiving. Rest in peace, Gordon. You paid the ultimate price, and we should never forget that. If you want to see more deep dives into legendary crashes, forgotten racers, and wild moments in motorsports history, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. What do you think should have been done differently back then? Let's talk about it. Thanks for watching.